Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm Ron Mackenzie Lafergie. Today it's time for the next stop on our seemingly endless journey into the disturbing mythos of Lovecraft. We've talked about Ythogtha, we've talked about yog-sothoth, and now it's time to talk about the creature whose name seems to be a combination of the two, Ythogtha. Yeah, these videos give my tongue a workout. Ythogtha is the second son of Cthulhu, who was imprisoned in the Abyss of Yhe by the Elder Gods. But what if he didn't exist in stories, but actually was out and about in real life? Let's explore. If you want more What If videos, check out our biggest What Ifs playlist on the channel. Now get ready, it's time to ask the question, what if Ythogtha was real? Now, as with our other Cthulhu videos, this video will assume that Ythogtha is the only Elder God or Great Old One around, so he won't have any competition on that front. However, since he is rather dependent on his servants, we'll assume that his servants are also real. This means that the Yugs, as well as their lord Ub, the father of worms, would also exist. Yes, the names sound disgusting, and yes, they live up to their names. More on them in a moment, but for now, let's talk about Ythogtha himself. Ythogtha first appeared in the Wazonek Legend Cycle series, written by Lynn Carter. He looks something like a giant humanoid frog, with a single eye in the middle of his forehead, but he is much more disgusting and far, far larger. How large? Well, when a sorceress priest tried to free him, he mistook his fingertips for mountainous heads, so he's pretty darn big. As with other beasts from the mythos, he has a number of tentacles on him, forming a sort of mane around his head. In terms of abilities, there's little we can know from the literature. Since he was imprisoned in the Abyss of Yhe, he really doesn't get a chance to strut his stuff. However, we know a bit more about the abilities of his minions. These minions were the Yugs, large flatworm-like creatures found underground, also known as the worms of the earth. They're able to interact with humans and even transmit genetic information to them through organic darts. Although, frankly, I'm not entirely sure what that means. They're known to communicate with humans, offering them great wealth in exchange for cooperation as well as sacrifices. They're led by the large, slug-like creature known as Ub, the father of worms, from whom the Yugs are spawned. In the mythos, they work to free their masters from their prison. So what might happen if Ythogtha was real? Well, that would depend on whether or not he was imprisoned. If he was free, things would look rather like they did with Cthulhu. He would be incredibly dangerous and would likely take over the earth. So for the purposes of this video, we'll assume that Ythogtha is still trapped under the earth and must depend on the Yugs to spread his influence on earth. How might this affect us? Well, first of all, it might take some time to convince the general population of the existence of the Yugs. The idea sounds pretty far-fetched, and most would shrug it off as just another silly conspiracy theory. This would make it quite a bit easier for the Yugs to infiltrate society and influence powerful people by helping them to achieve their goals. Eventually, however, there's a good chance that one would slip up and be captured, which would allow even the most skeptical to come to terms with the strange new creature. If we learned that there were giant worms that were bribing people with money in order to gain their service, people would become even more suspicious of the rich than they are now. And that's saying something. Currently, people on all sides of the political spectrum are engaging in numerous conspiracy theories about the rich and powerful, with many believing them to be a part of some greater harmful agenda. If we knew that some rich people got that way thanks to some freaky worms that were serving a giant tentacle monster, it would change the way we looked at rich folks. But even if we did learn about them and we knew that they intended to harm humanity, there are some who would still take advantage of their supposed generosity. As we've seen throughout history, some people are more than happy to sell out their fellow humans in exchange for personal wealth and power. There's a good chance that the Yugs would prioritize powerful leaders with cult followings in order to influence as many people as possible. If they were around nowadays, they would almost certainly try to tempt Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or even the British royal family in hopes of using their following to gain influence and perhaps release Ythogtha from his prison. And whether out of narcissism or greed, there is a chance that they would accept. In order to limit the actions of the Yugs and to stop people from being potentially corrupted, we might attempt to build devices that could locate and exterminate them. Since they tend to be found underground, these would likely be small drilling devices that could sense the movement or digging of the Yugs, find them, and kill them. We might also find ways to detect them when they're about in the world, looking for people to influence. This could be either with technology or simply training dogs to sniff them out. However, it might just be best to try to cut off the head of the snake. If possible, there's a good chance we'd try to hunt down Ub to stop more Yugs from being created and perhaps disrupt their structure. Without Ub, it's possible that the Yugs would become disorganized and might be easier to deal with, allowing us to exterminate them and move on with our lives. Otherwise, there's a chance that they would succeed, Ythogtha would rise, and humanity would be in for a bad time. And now we return to our question, what if Ythogtha was real? Well, his Yugs would cause quite the problem. Under the leadership of Ub, the Yugs would infiltrate world governments by promising money and power in return for allegiance. If they succeeded and Ythogtha returned, the world would probably be more or less doomed. If, however, we manage to stop them, either by hunting the Yugs down or killing their leader, then the world could begin to return to normal. Or at least as normal as it can be with the thought of giant conniving flatworms floating around in our minds. Thank you for watching Life's Biggest Questions. I hope this was interesting and informative, and maybe even inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you like this video, please thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below. While you're down there, let me know if you would accept the help of the Yugs if they promise to make you rich. Until next time, I'm Ron Mackenzie LaFergie with Life's Biggest Questions, wishing you the best of luck on your quest for answers.